I suppose it's time to tell you about the story that I decided to turn down the opportunity bestowed upon me to try crack cocaine. And I know what you're probably wondering, why would you turn down such a transformative experience? Well, I decided to turn it down on behalf of my roommate at the time, not allowing me to use his silicone dab rig to smoke crack. Please don't smoke crack out of my silicone dab rig, he said. And I think those were the most life-saving words I've ever heard in my life. So, how I acquired this crack cocaine. So it's not like I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to try crack today. I wasn't like, out to get a bag of crack, you know what I'm saying? I was chilling in my roommate's room, and he had this, he was trying to load a bowl with some weed, not some crack. He was trying to load a bowl with some weed, and he was like trying to scrape out all the resin and shit that was in it. And he was like, "Hand me that knife over there." I was like, "What the fuck?" It was a little flip knife that had pot leaves all over it. I was like, "Where the fuck did you get this?" He was like, I found it outside on the ground at the gas station. I thought it was like kind of cringe having a pot leaf knife. That was kind of funny, so I picked it up. And I was like, all right. It's not like him. Like, I mean, yeah, we were potheads, but we're not just gonna fucking wear like weed shirts. You know what I mean? That's not the extent of our personality. So, like some people, but we were kind of just like nonchalant about it. You know what I mean? Um, so I knew right off the bat that it wasn't his knife. He wasn't like, yeah, I'm gonna get this fucking pot leaf knife. And no, no, no. That's it's a little over the top. So I hand him this. I pick up this knife and I hand it to him. And he's like scraping the bowl out. He hands it back to me, and we start smoking. And I start looking at this knife, and I like flip it open, and I look inside of the blade reservoir. So like the handle without the blade. You know what that is. So inside of it, it looked like there was like some trash, or it looked like a straw wrapper from like Sonic or something, like a white straw wrapper that's like been crunched up in a little tiny ball and stuffed in there. I was like, how could a piece of trash get so far embezzled inside of this knife, this blade reservoir? It's not like it just fell in there. That shit was in there. And so I'm like digging it out with another knife. And upon looking at it, I could not believe my eyes. It was the most tweaker shit I've ever seen in my entire life. It was a twist up corner of a baggie that was like cut off, and it was like twisted up and burnt with a lighter, so it was like as small as possible. And it was like the size of my fucking pinky nail. Not even. It was a really tiny. This was the work of a tweaker. All right. And I could tell that there was a rock inside of it. And I'm like, that's not going to be not drugs, you know what I mean? And there's a very select few drug varieties that would be in this format. So I'm like, this is either meth or it's crack, because no cokehead's going to have that little amount of coke. You know what I mean? Doing that a bit of coke, like doing that small of an amount, that's just going to irritate you. It's just going to make you mad. So I'm like, this isn't just coke, and it's not Molly, because somebody who's doing Molly isn't going to do that. So I was like, this is either meth, given the environment that surrounded uh, my vicinity. I was like, it's most likely meth, right? So because crack was kind of like an obsolete thing. It's like, oh, you smoking crack? It's like, nobody wants to know that you're smoking crack. But meth, it's like, all right, that's fucked up, but like, a lot of people smoke meth out here, just like stay away from me. But crack, that's like a meme, you know what I mean? Like whenever somebody tells me that they smoke crack, that's funny to me. I think it's funny. Um, so anyway, I cut open this bag, all right, and I crush the rock down, and it's just like a big pile of powder now. And I stick my finger in it and I lick it, and it tastes like soap. And I'm like, it's kind of like baking soda. And my tongue starts going numb, and I'm like, that's some crack. That is definitely some crack. And my roommate's like astonished. He's like, no fucking way. Like as soon as I pull the bag out and I tell him what it is, I'm like, he's like mind blown. He's like, no fucking way. And like we just started laughing, and like, this is one of those moments that I'll just never forget. But like, so I taste it. I'm like, yeah, it's definitely crack. And he tastes it. He's like, bro, this is literally crack cocaine, 100%. And I'm like, you want to smoke it? He was like, no. I was like, I'm not gonna snort it. And I was like really big into drugs back then, so I was like, I don't want to just throw drugs away because I'm a fucking fiend. You know what I mean? And he was like, how are you gonna smoke it? I was like, I mean, I could use your silicone dab rig. And he was like, dude, don't use my dab rig to smoke crack. I was like, all right. So it sat on the table. It sat on the table for fucking, I don't know, like a month, just around 30 days. And my buddy at the time, he was on parole, so he couldn't smoke, and he was trying to like stay away from drinking. So he was like the most sober he's ever been in his life, aside from birth. And he comes over, we start talking, and somehow the crack is brought up, and it's still on his table. So it's collected a lot of dust, okay? And as soon as I fucking tell him, he's like, you have crack? I'm like, unfortunately, that is the case. And he goes in there and talks to my roommate, and I hear, I'm like, dude, you did not just fucking snort that, because I didn't want to snort it. You know what I mean? Because like I don't want the baking soda in my stomach. It's dawned on me how ridiculous it is. Like, nah, snorting crack, that's unhealthy. Smoking crack, that's some gourmet shit. Organic. Um, so he comes out and he's like scratching his nose. I'm like, did you just fucking snort all that crack? And he starts laughing. And my roommate comes out and he's like fucking, he starts kind of geeking out a little bit. Not like, but like, he's more talkative. You could definitely tell that was 100% cocaine. And yeah, I wish the story ended a little more interesting, but that was it, man. That was the story of the time that I decided to turn down crack. And sometimes during a long day of work, a long week, I'm kind of like, it's like one of those like I'd do any drug right now kind of vibes. I look back to that moment like, man, what if I smoked the crack? What if I like snuck into his room and like freebased that crack off of his table? How would my life have turned out? And I'm glad that I didn't. There's something about picking up cigarette butts outside a gas station parking lot at 2 in the morning. It doesn't really sit right with me. It's not really good for the image, you know. So, lesson learned: don't smoke crack. Yeah, that's about it.